Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opposite the Monitor, and today we're going to get into some Bethesda news. Since Starfield released, it's Bethesda's week. There's a bunch of stuff that's been going on with Bethesda and everything like that, so we're going to get right into it. And yeah, man, Pete Hines, man, I don't know what is going on, but he's been coming out saying like a bunch of just wild stuff lately, in my opinion, that I disagree with. On some points, not everything, but some things I do disagree with, and we're going to get into that today. We're also going to get into, the initial release of Starfield and everything like that, and how some people on certain platforms, necessarily need to kind of get the understanding of early access, in my opinion. And then we also got some more information that we're going to dive into today. But yeah, Bethesda Exec defends Starfield's bugs. We embrace chaos. I don't know why that is something that you should tout or something that you should, put some pride into and stuff. Like embracing chaos is a good thing. Like that's not a good thing. But Pete Hines kind of he goes on to say in this article, I guess, that they kind of quote him on. We embrace chaos. We could make safer, less buggy, less risky games if we wanted to, but what we try to lean into is player freedom. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. You know what I'm saying? You can still make a safe, risky game that's not, you can still make a game that's risky and not buggy. You can also make a game, just because a game is safer, doesn't mean that it is, invulnerable to bugs either. You know what I'm saying? That has nothing to do with each other. You can make a risky game and it not be buggy. I can give Baldur's Gate 3 with the amount of content that is in that game, with the amount of ambition that game has, that entire production, that entire project is very risky. Not a lot of developers can actually pull that off and it be good like the way that Baldur's Gate 3 is. On top of that, Baldur's Gate 3 released with bugs, but they also, as soon as those bugs were reported and brought to their attention, they sent out an update that, squashed over 1,000 of those bugs, in within a week. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just this to me is very much so a case of I'm going to make excuses for our terrible development. And this kind of perpetuates the ideology of the Pete Hines school of the game development methodology. It's just I can't remember the exact quote he said during the interview. I think that was with IGN, or it could have been with, I thought it was with IGN though. But where, it kind of just it's not about the, how you release the game. It's about how you finish, essentially, or something like that, to that kind of extent. And I'm just it seems like Pete Hines has got that same kind of mentality with that. And it's he's just going, this is a roundabout way to make an excuse for not developing a good game. Especially given the fact that Bethesda is a larger studio than Larian Studios. Bethesda in all regard is a AAA studio. I would probably consider Larian more like a AA studio, to be completely honest with you. You know what I'm saying? And the fact of is that you have a smaller studio with less resources, because they're not backed by a $1 trillion company. They're not backed by Microsoft. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the resources at hand to be able to do that, But my thing is I don't get this type of mentality where you just want to kind of make an excuse for not developing a game that can be both. You can have a risky game that's not safe and it not be buggy. You can also make a safe game that is buggy. We've seen both sides of it. So it puzzles my mind and it boggles my mind when I hear this type of stuff. But to go on, they say that, or Pete Hines says that, yes, there's going to be some little things here and there where your companion might stand a little too close to you sometimes. Yet the freedom you get and the things that happen because of that, we absolutely love and embrace. I guess so, yeah. For me, so I've played a little bit. I played just a little bit of Starfield. I actually purchased Starfield yesterday. I didn't purchase Starfield day one because of the reasons that I'm going to talk about later on. As well as me understanding early access. I never really try to purchase games day one, or I'll pre-order games that I know for a fact, you know, that I'm invested in, but I won't play them day one because I know how, you know, especially if it's multiplayer, servers are definitely going to be down. We've all seen that with Overwatch 2, you know, and that game didn't even release in early access. So, you know, or even just like Call of Duty, like that game, like those games don't release in early access and they come with, you know what I'm saying, day one issues. So my thing is that like I try to steer away from day one and stuff like that. But, you know, I mean, I guess so with this type of statement, I guess like, you know, the freedom that happens, I don't know how much freedom happens with just your companion being close to you other than them just being a nuisance. And that's kind of like where I'm at now with Starfield and just like with Fallout 4 and everything like that. Even with, you know, I wouldn't say Skyrim so much, but like Fallout 4 and Fallout 3, typically like I got to a point where I just ran solo. I didn't do any companions. Even with my character now in Starfield that I created, I chose to be an introvert because once I'm able to not just have my companions around me, granted, there's benefits to having the companions because there's like extra storage space that you can essentially give them. They can also help out with combat and things like that. My thing is like they're in the way a lot of the times. And that's kind of like when I was playing Starfield last night, Vasca, which is the robot, he helps. He's a great combatant. He's useful in certain situations and things like that. But I'm not going to sit back and act like he didn't trap me in a corner while I was trying to get out after, you know, searching lockers and stuff like that for, you know, resources and stuff. So it's like, yeah, like, you know, it's fun to kind of have them around in certain situations and stuff. But me personally, it's like, I have more freedom when they're not there. So I don't know like what kind of freedom you're trying to talk about here when you say that, you know, yes, the companions might stand a little close to you, but yet the freedom you get and the things that happen because of that, we absolutely love and embrace. Like, I have more freedom because they're not there. So, you know, it's like I can do whatever I want to do and not be hindered because they're not in my ass, essentially. But he goes on to say that, of course, there are bugs, but does it take away from your experience? I mean, typically bugs pull people out of immersion. So, I mean, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, a bug is going to pull you out of the immersion of the game. Like if you see, you know, frame rate dropping, or if you see, you know, enemies rubber banding or stuff like that, like, yes, it's pretty funny in the moment, but it's more so just like, you know, how many times has that happened until the point to where it's just like, you know, this is kind of annoying, you know? Do you have a consistent fun game, or do you have a consistent fun game that you just can't stop playing and experimenting with? I mean, you can have that without the bugs. You know what I'm saying? Like you can still have you can have a fun game that you can't stop playing and experimenting with without bugs. You know, like I keep going back to it, but I'm trying to compare RPG to RPG. When you compare Baldur's Gate 3 to this, they're both full-fledged RPGs. I think Baldur's Gate 3 is probably way more of an RPG than Starfield is. When you compare the two, it's like I still have a fun, consistent time with playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I think I have the ultimate choice most of the time when I'm engaging in dialogue, when I perform specific actions, certain actions, things like that. There's so many different ways to experiment in both of these games, and my thing is that like one doesn't have as many bugs as the other. You know, now granted, this is to say that during my time of playing, which I haven't played that much of Starfield just yet, I haven't ran into any like crazy bugs unlike some other people. But I'm not gonna also act like that, you know, there aren't a lot of people out here that are experiencing a lot of bugs, you know? So I mean, like, there's both sides, you know, to a coin essentially. And my thing is like, you know, if you can mitigate as many bugs as possible, why not do so? You know, if you have the capabilities, if you have the manpower, if you have the resources, if you have the money to be able to mitigate, you know, a terrible experience, why not invest into that? Because you can still get the same outcome by like hammering down on bugs. So I mean, like, it's still perpetuating that mindset of like, you know, it's okay to have bugs and da da da. And I kind of blame, gamers for this. I blame the gaming community for this, because for so long we've kind of like ignored Bethesda when it came to their bugs and their mess ups and everything like that. When it came to, you know, Skyrim, when it came to Fallout, you know, when it came to the different type of games that they put out, we kind of like, you know, kind of glanced over it and stuff like that. The same way with Rockstar, we kind of glanced over and ignored the fact that they were like monetizing, you know, their consumer base, like, you know, egregiously, you know what I'm saying? That's the funny thing is, like, people will like criticize Activision, EA for monetization, but they'll never say anything about Take-Two. They'll never say anything about Grand Theft Auto. You know, people just started recently saying things about Grand Theft Auto and the shark cards and the GTA Plus membership and everything like that. But they'll never say anything about that. They'll never say anything about, they will focus and criticize on EA. They'll focus and criticize on Activision, but all of them play the same dirty game. All of them play the same schemy, nasty game when it comes to monetizing their consumer base or their community. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, you know, to me, it's just kind of like hypocritical on that front. But I mean, you know, that's just, this type of statement just does not make any sense to me whatsoever when it comes to Pete Hines at all. You know, it's like, it gets ridiculous. But moving on, we got some more information though about, you know, Pete Hines again, and him coming out saying some more very idiotic stuff, in my opinion. So Bethesda's Pete Hines says that Redfall will be a good game eventually, compares it to Fallout 76. He quotes, or they quote him, "We don't quit or abandon stuff just because it didn't start right." Yeah, I mean, that's a good mindset to have, I guess. You know what I'm saying? That's a you know, optimistic mindset to kind of have. Bethesda Software's publishing head Pete Hines has reassured players that Arcane isn't giving up on Redfall despite its lukewarm reception on launch earlier this year. In fact, he's confident it will be a good game people want to play on Game Pass 10 years from now. I mean, that is, you know, I guess wishful thinking, I would assume, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's great to kind of think that people are just so enamored with the game that they'll be playing it 10 years from now. And it's like, no, bro, like, this game is already an afterthought. You destroyed the first impression of this game so bad because you wanted to make a studio that did not specialize in multiplayer, make them do multiplayer. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, you got like some of the people that worked there just ended up leaving, and then you got more people and asked them to focus on single player and then made them do a multiplayer game. It doesn't make any sense, you know? So my thing is like, I don't think Redfall is going to be a game that people play on Game Pass 10 years from now. And I also think that the fact that you are using Game Pass as a crutch, or you're dependent upon Game Pass being here and being prominent and stuff like that to just throw bad games on it, you know, that's kind of like a disservice to the community, essentially, because you're not putting your best foot forward when it comes to developing the game. You want to just put out any kind of game or whatever like that and just throw it out on Game Pass and, you know, just be like, hey, we'll just develop it over time and stuff like that. And typically we've seen in the game community that, you know, developers end up falling off. They say these type of things and then don't fulfill the promise that they made. We can go back to EA's Anthem. You know, Andrew Wilson came out and said, yeah, we're definitely dedicated to Anthem and everything like that. And we're going to make sure Anthem is, you know, the best game and all that stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, but guess what? Nobody's talking about Anthem now. You know what I'm saying? Anthem was supposed to be that live service from EA that was going to kind of like rival The Division and stuff like that. And, or, you know, Rainbow Six Siege, but it never happened. You know, we don't talk about Anthem anymore unless we're talking about it in a negative light or comparing it to another terrible game, you know? And so that's my thing, is like this same type of mindset of like, oh yeah, it's just going to exist on Game Pass for 10 years and people are just going to play it. They're going to continue to play it. No, the people that, you know, can possibly look past that, which is very far and few in between, that can look past the first impression that Redfall had. You know, the ones that were dedicated to this, that were, you know, you have those fans that are just going to be dedicated to this game. They're going to play that, you know what I'm saying? But the amount of people that you think and envision in your mind that's going to play this game 10 years from now, they're not going to play this. They're going to play the next best thing. You know, 10 years from now, they'll probably be playing Elder Scrolls 6. People won't even be thinking about Redfall. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of, you know, type of, I guess, you know, mindset I'm going in with this in. But he goes on to say that we are the same company that has had launches that didn't go the way we wanted, and we don't quit or abandon stuff just because it didn't start right. He goes on to say that the Elder Scrolls Online PC launch was not flawless, but we stuck with it. Now it's like this insanely popular multi-platform. It's the same with Fallout 76. Redfall is no different for us. To specifically talk about Elder Scrolls Online, that was developed and supported by the parent company ZeniMax. So, I mean, that wasn't a Bethesda thing. Like that, I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't a Bethesda thing. That was a ZeniMax thing, because ZeniMax does all of your online multiplayer support. So it's like Bethesda they don't specialize in that. It's the whole main reason. You can even go back to some of the older games. You know what I'm saying? Like, even with Elder Scrolls Online PC, like, it's ZeniMax that supported that, which is the parent company. So I don't know what, like, I mean, I guess, did he forget that? You know what I'm saying? Like, did you forget that that's the parent company's game that worked I mean, as far as the support over time, that's ZeniMax. That wasn't Bethesda that supported that over time. You know, so, you know, Bethesda created the world, but the online, that's all ZeniMax. You know, he also brought in Fallout 76. I mean, Fallout 76 is, nobody's talking about Fallout 76, you know? Like, that game was terrible on launch, and that game continued to be terrible after launch. Like, with all of, I mean, are you just going to sit back and forget that people, you know, were, like, there were a bunch of cheaters and people were getting their entire inventory stolen? You know what I'm saying? Like, are we just going to sit back and act like that didn't happen? Are we going to sit back and act like the whole nuking system thing, you know, was never implemented? Are we gonna sit back and act like you tried to do battle royale and then that wasn't, you know, that was the whole nuking system thing, that didn't work, that didn't happen? We gonna sit back and act like there were bugs, that like they're not still bugs in the game? You know, nobody talks about that game anymore. That game is finished. You know, people don't care about that. We're on Starfield now. So it's like you sit back and it's like most of your player base has left Fallout 76 and they're playing Starfield now. And they'll probably continue to play Starfield for years. And so that's what I'm saying is just like when you start actually paying attention to the spin and the words and the things that they continue to say, is just like, yeah, no, bro, I don't think that you're out here saying this, but I don't believe this is what you actually believe. This is just spin for me. You know, but he goes on to say that, okay, we didn't get the start we wanted, but it's still a fun game. We're going to keep working on it. We're going to do 60 FPS. We're going to get it to be a good game because we know as a first party studio, Game Pass lives forever. This is what I said earlier, where they are dependent upon Game Pass through Microsoft. Microsoft has essentially created a crutch for Bethesda. This is how Pete Hines views this now. There will be people 10 years from now who are going to join Game Pass and Redfall will be there. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't even care about like developing a good game day one anymore. They don't even care about that. They care about trying to justify bad habits and trying to justify not being able to develop a good game and then turn around and bank on people who have probably never ran into the game before, you know what I'm saying? Or kids, you know, that are, you know, if he's talking about 10 years from now, probably kids are like 2 or 3 or 4 right now that, you know, don't even know this game exists right now. And they'll probably jump on Game Pass and see that, you know, Redfall is there. Oh, it looks cool. It looks fun, you know, and all that stuff. At that point, they'll be 13, 14, and they'll just probably want to jump into it. That's what he's banking on. He's banking on that. And my thing is that like, this also goes back into that egregious mindset of like preying on people's inability to know and understand what is going on, and I see a bunch of content creators calling this out and stuff, which is great. You know what I'm saying? But I think that like my point of view on this still stands with, Game Pass is inevitably going to be a crutch for a lot of developers. For a lot of developers to just put out shit games that, they don't put a lot of effort into day one, and it's like, hey, it's fine, it's okay. We're gonna continue to work on it. You know what I'm saying? We're going to continue to kind of like, develop it over time and stuff. And I'm just like, you're a AAA developer, you are held to a different standard because you charge more for your games. You know what I'm saying? This isn't an indie development studio that is only charging people, $40 or $30 or whatever like that, that's coming into early access. If you want to have that type of mindset, then release your game in early access on PC first. Don't hide behind marketing. Don't hide behind, pay, like having critic reviews and stuff, and trying to make sure they only play a certain portion of the game, so that way they only have a limited perspective of what a 20 hour game. You only want to give them 3 to 5 hour chunks of a game of a game that's 20 to 25 hours long. If you want to go about it that way, just go ahead and put it in early access. You can do it on early access. You don't even have to put it on Game Pass. You can just put it on early access and have people pay for it first, but that's not the standard that you're held to. You like being called a AAA studio. You like that attention that comes with that, but then you want to act like you're a indie developer. You want to act like you are a developer that puts out early access games. So one thing I'll keep comparing it. Larian Studios, when they put out Baldur's Gate 3, that game released in early access at not full price. I paid $40 for that game in early access and was able to enjoy that game over a course of about 3.5 years. Up until now, it's fully released at like $60, I think. And I think you can get it like $80 or whatever for like the deluxe edition that comes with additional content, which I ended up receiving at no additional cost at the price of the game that I paid. I invested into that game in early access, and guess what? I got all the deluxe content for investing in that game early. So this is what I'm talking about when I like to be able to compare different studios that both coexist within the same genre of gaming. And it's just weird to kind of hear this too. It's like, man, like you're not doing yourself any favors when you say this kind of stuff. You're not doing yourself any favors when you say, when you try to justify your bad habits in game development and try to use another platform as a crutch. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not what Game Pass was originally created for. Game Pass wasn't originally created for you to have a crutch and not develop a good game. Game Pass is a pro-consumer platform. It's a platform to allow people who may not necessarily be able to just buy $60 games all the time, but at least you can invest in a $10 a month platform and then have access to all these games day one. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like it's just a crazy mindset to kind of even hear this stuff being said. But it's Pete Hines, and you know what the crazy thing is, I guess it's like Pete Hines I used to see as like Phil Spencer a little bit. Like Pete Hines was that that type of person who seemed really down to earth and was like every time you see his interviews and stuff like that, it was also, what I'm saying, like a more like chill dad type of thing. He wasn't super professional. He wasn't like anything like that. And I don't know, just, that Todd Howard school of game development methodology, I don't know. He's been hanging around Todd Howard too long. Todd Howard's known for being a liar. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy, man. But yeah, it's funny to see the downfall of Bethesda and, the degradation over time. But, well, I will say though, man, Starfield is getting enjoyable, and that's kind of what I'm jumping into next. So moving on, Starfield completely unplayable at early access. As fans start to panic, this is where I'm coming in at, where they specifically go on to kind of talk about, console players. And here we'll go right here where they kind of go over and say, over on the Xbox Series X Reddit, subreddit, a number of Starfield fans had a little panic when Starfield wouldn't let them in, despite having preloaded the game and despite it being past the specified launch time in their region. You can see how this would terrify fans who have been waiting years to play. This is why I don't engage in gaming day one. You know, I don't necessarily suffer from FOMO. I don't have to be there day one to be able to jump into a game, especially a game like this. You know what I'm saying? Like a game like this where, you know, there is no multiplayer component, so there is no online competition. There is none of that to be able to kind of like start the battle pass, you know, and, you know, try to unlock stuff early and all this stuff like that. Like it's, most of this is like FOMO. Most of this is like, hey, I want to be able to kind of jump in, explore stuff. And if I'm the one to find like this secret thing first, then I can take a screenshot of it, or I can record myself doing it and post it for everybody else to see and have all eyes on me. That's kind of like not what I suffer from. I'm not on that boat. I don't necessarily care. I play games to enjoy games. You know what I'm saying? Like I like playing games and stuff like that. Like I'm not a content creator first and a gamer second. I'm a gamer first and content creator second. Like when I play in my games, I like to enjoy my games. I don't care about recording and putting it out there for everybody to see. I mean, that may be something I may do later on, you know, in the, you know, course of the development of this channel essentially. But, you know, I'm more so just like, I like to be able to play and live in my games, for the most part. So yeah, I think, but with to circle back around to this though, I think the major thing missing here is the fact of it's Xbox Series X. And typically consoles don't get that many like early access opportunities as PC players do. So me coming from like playing, I have a PS5 and I also have a PC. A lot of my games that I play, and I don't have an Xbox because I don't need to have one. Like I have access to Game Pass on my PC. I can play, you know, games, you know, I bought Starfield on Steam. So it's like, you know, I like having all my games in one, like in Steam mostly. I do have Epic Game Store as well, but you know, that's a conversation for a different day. But essentially though, you know, I feel like PC players have a lot more experience when it comes to early access. And for me, being a PC player, I'm a lot more understanding of what happens in early access and what happens, you know, like day one type of stuff. And, you know, you're going to run into server issues. You're going to run into, you know, things not going right, you know, immediately at launch and stuff like that. So I kind of think like this article just doesn't necessarily kind of point that out, but I think it's also specifically too because they're pulling from a subreddit. There's just an Xbox Series X subreddit. You know, console players don't get that opportunity as much, and when they do get early access, it's not that long. Like it's only for like 3 to 5 days essentially. You know, whereas if you're a PC player, you got a plethora of choices to choose from that are early access. And typically those games will be in early access for 3 to 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like as of now, like I've been playing Scum. Scum is still in early access and that game released in early access in 2018, you know? So it's just like, I think it's just a difference of perspective, a difference of like, you know, what type of fans are engaging in the early access. Me personally, I knew there were going to be some issues. I didn't necessarily think like, you know, that, you know, the release window wouldn't be accurate or anything like that. But, you know, there's been times where it's like, hey, you know, you got to wait a few minutes or whatever like that. Or maybe they want to release it and maybe a specific region gets it first and stuff like that. It just depends. So I mean, like, yeah, for me with this particular article, you know, I'm not necessarily like so surprised about this particular situation. You know, I don't know why people are panicking. Well, I mean, I do understand why people are panicking, but I don't understand like why it's a big thing, I guess. You know, early access, that's what it's for. Early access is going to be a rough start. That's just kind of like how not all games do it. You know, some games actually, you know, do early access very, very well, but those are like far and few in between. And on top of that, you know, it's kind of to be expected. They also release with like bugs and stuff like that too, which I'm pretty sure Starfield released some patching over the course of the early access time as well. So, You know, for me, when I play the game, I didn't run into any bugs or issues or anything like that. I didn't run into any like frame rate drops or anything like that. I did have to change my sensitivity settings. And I'm also, they also don't offer full screen mode yet neither. They only offer windowed and borderless. So yeah, I'm not too happy and keen about that. But I mean, other than that though, I mean, like they don't necessarily like, it doesn't necessarily run. I don't run into any major issues essentially with this game yet. Not yet though. But moving on though, got some more information about Starfield. And yo, this is a crazy like series of events, man. But a man was up all night playing Starfield and saves his family from a apartment fire. This is crazy. This is why, like I say, man, gamers can save lives. Gamers can save lives. Don't think gamers like don't have an impact in the world. Like gamers actually have impact in the world, as per this article. So I'm gonna go over like the events that kind of took place in this article, though. But the Redditor goes on to say, and I think his name is Tidy C Killer, goes on to say that on the night of August 31st, I decided to stay up and play as long as possible to experience this new universe. At 2:26 in the morning while playing the game, I heard an explosion from my downstairs neighbor's apartment. I paused my game to see what was happening, I guess. When I opened the door, I saw flames rising up our stairwell to our apartment. He goes on to also say, I immediately got my wife and cat rushing us to safety with only minor burns. If I hadn't been up binging Starfield, I would have been asleep and would have had we would have all died of smoke inhalation. I wanted to thank this game from saving my family and me from a horrible fate. He also goes on to say that with the fire spreading so rapidly and sealed doors between their apartment and the fire, Tidy C Killer thinks their smoke detectors wouldn't have gone off until the fire had blocked the family into their apartment. As it was, they finally the family could neither see nor breathe during their actual escape. This is wild. Like I can't imagine like if he was still asleep or whatever, they wouldn't have been able to get out of their apartment. They wouldn't have been able to get out of their apartment. And it's like, and it's, I mean, I guess like, most modern apartments come with fire extinguishers, but I mean, like, even in my place, like, I don't have a fire extinguisher. I need to actually go buy one. But yeah, like, this is just a wild story. But he goes on to say that just had to feel my way out. With the wall of fire coming up the stairs, he noticed that the smoke alarm in their apartment didn't go off until my wife opened the door and to run. So the smoke alarms didn't even go off until he opened the door. So can you imagine like being in your apartment? You're not playing anything at night. You're both asleep, and you don't know if fire is going off. Until like it's too late. You know what I'm saying? And essentially too, I mean, like, I don't know for other people, but for me, I'm pretty much a light sleeper, and certain things kind of wake me up. Like certain smells will wake me up. Certain like not natural noises, I guess would wake me up or anything like that. But it's like, yeah, like that's actually kind of crazy to think about. So they actually kind of show off kind of like, a picture here on the subreddit of the fire, which is crazy, man. It's like, yeah, it looks like just to be like a 2-story building, which had like some outside, stairwells. But it's like, I mean, I guess if you could jump out the window, but he kind of goes on to talk about the windows too. So he says that the poster's belief is that a woman in the apartment, this is actually like, so before I get into that, he kind of also talks about the windows and says that fire went up our front and back of our building and blew out all the windows. So, jumping out the windows probably wasn't an option, given the fact that, I mean, it's a 2-story building. You can survive off that kind of drop if you had to jump out of a window. But this is kind of going into what he believes is the catalyst for the fire. But he goes on to say the poster's belief is that a woman in an apartment below was on oxygen and also smoking. What in the hell? Sounds like an old boomer. Sounds like a boomer out here putting other people's lives at risk. Thank you, Bethesda, for creating Starfield to allow this family to survive another boomer incident. But the explosion heard was the detonation of the oxygen tanks from an accidental light up, which is fuel and heat that would also account for the fire's immediate rapid spread. This is crazy, man. This is absolutely wild to even just think about. But man, glad glad him and his wife is safe. I think he also got his cat out of there too. So, you know what I'm saying? Glad that entire family is safe and stuff like that. They don't speak of the I'm assuming that's an elderly person with oxygen, and they were also smoking. I don't think that person survived. Typically people with oxygen tanks typically keep the tank near them. So if I had to guess, it probably was sitting on a recliner with the oxygen tank on a little dolly with wheels, and them firing up a cigarette, which I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, you would think that a person who's on oxygen wouldn't be smoking, but we live in America here, so all kind of wild shit happens all the time. But yeah, man, this is crazy, man. But I'm glad he was able to survive. Glad he was able to get his, himself, his wife, and his cat out of there. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Thank you, Bethesda, for saving lives out here. But I thought that was kind of like it's not necessarily like a funny story, but it's just crazy. It's just a crazy series of events that took place. But moving on though, we have some more information about PlayStation and their stupid ass price increases and the dumb justification behind it. So PlayStation Plus price increases are announced for all tiers. Everybody. Premium plan going up $40 a year. This is crazy. After reading this article, hearing about this, and going into more detail about this, I canceled my PlayStation Plus subscription today. As of the recording of this video, I canceled my PlayStation Plus subscription. I'm not going to pay you. I think the essential subscription was going to go to $80. And I think it just increases more going up, but we'll get more into that now. But so Sony has raised the price of every PlayStation Plus tier. The company has announced that beginning September 6th, 12-month subscriptions to the service will be more expensive. The premium tier will be $40 more expensive per year. Sony said it's charging more so it can continue to launch high quality games and value added benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription service. You've already done this. That was the main purpose and why you said you were increasing your games to $70. Like, what are you talking about? It's almost as if they just think we don't remember shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost as if they think we live in a world where, the internet doesn't exist. It's just crazy, man. It's just I'm pretty sure they just assume that we just forget things. The whole main reasoning was the fact of you raising the games to $70 was to deliver higher quality games, you know what I'm saying, and to be able to justify the $70 price tag, which I still think you didn't. I still think you didn't. So, going on though, they kind of give a breakdown of each individual tier. The PS Plus Essential tier is going up to $80, and I think that was originally $60. The extra is rising to $135, and the PlayStation Plus Premium will be $160 a year. Who in the hell is paying $160 a year for PlayStation Plus? That's assuming that PlayStation Plus offers the same value as Amazon Prime. And it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? At least with Amazon Prime, I can get access to free monthly games because they do it. They also, Amazon gives away free games as well. But I also have an entire store and shop I can just choose to shop from and get discounts and all kind of stuff. Prime Day, all this different type of stuff like that. It just, you need to offer more for the price, Sony. And Sony, I'm continuing to see this type of trend after this new CEO took over of just trying to monetize things beyond reason. Even with the PlayStation Portal handheld, which ain't even really like a handheld for real. It's a companion piece that also supports remote connectivity to your PS5. I'm just it doesn't make any sense to even think that you will be justified in charging extra money for something that doesn't offer the value of what this offer, what this is supposed to offer you at $160, at $135, at $80. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy to me. you want people to pay $160, but you're not even going to give them PlayStation exclusives day one if they pay for this. Like you're not going to, you're giving high quality games and value added benefits. Is that going to give PlayStation players, day one exclusive? Even then, it's like you would pay less money for a day one exclusive on PlayStation than you would to even pay the $160 a year. The game be $70. Just think about that. If you want a day one access to a game, the game would then in turn be cheaper to get day one than if you played this $160 a year. It's crazy to me, like to even think about that, And granted, I guess I'm coming from a different type of perspective because I purchase most of my games today on PC. The only time I ever purchase a game on PlayStation is specifically for an exclusive. Or if it's like specific games that I know are coming out with the Nouveau on PC, I'll end up getting a game that isn't like that for PlayStation, because when you buy games on console, they come with their own locked ecosystem, and the Nouveau is just a anti-tamper software, so people can't pirate games and do all this other stuff. It's harder to do that on PlayStation than it is to do it on PC. So, but it's just like, I don't see the value in this. Granted, they haven't really given too much detail yet, but it's supposed to be coming off the heels of I guess price increases with, Microsoft's Game Pass, which still Microsoft's Game Pass is of more value than PlayStation Plus. Like, that's just hands down. This isn't like any oh, he's a Microsoft guy and da-da-da-da. And, I hate hearing that in my comments. Don't say that because I have a PC and I have a PlayStation. So it's like, I get the best of both worlds. Hands down, anybody with half a brain knows that Microsoft's Game Pass is of more value and more pro-consumer than PlayStation Plus. Hands down. So I mean, it just seems like it's just a competitive move at the expense of their customer base. That's it. It's a competitive move at the expense of their customer base. They want to kind of charge players more for, a plan that wasn't even beneficial in the same way that Microsoft was to begin with. Because you only got like a limited amount of games per month, whereas Microsoft, you got a whole library of games. And with Microsoft's Game Pass, you get exclusive, you get games that are exclusive to Xbox day one. So it's like, I don't get this type of, mindset, I guess, but it's Sony. But moving on though, we have more information. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 now scheduled for fall 2024. This is actually good news. Man, this game had such a rocky development. This game was, presumably supposed to be, in my opinion, I thought it was gonna be dead. I thought it was just gonna exist in development hell. It's had so many different developers attached to it at this point that I just had no hope of this game ever coming out. Or if it did release, it was going to release in such an awful, terrible state. But, they go on to kind of say, and I'll just give a brief overview of this. The new game development studio that's taken over now is called the Chinese Room, and they have previously led projects like Everybody's Going to the Rapture. I've actually played that game before. It's very good, very story-driven game. I don't know if they had any hand in the combat and anything, but after seeing the official trailer, just a little bit of the gameplay that was in that trailer, I didn't necessarily see the behind the scenes. I didn't know they had that, but I saw the announcement trailer or release trailer. Just the combat looks really great. I don't know if that combat was already delivered before they got their hands on it. And it was just like they were having trouble with the story development. But I do know that Everybody's Going to the Rapture was actually really great atmospherically, and they also had a good story to it. It was a very slow game. It was a game that was mostly just about just walking, just a bunch of walking, a bunch of reading, and stuff like that. But they know how to create an atmosphere. They know how to create an atmosphere. They know how to make a game that is very much so immersive. And having them tied to this game, I think is a benefit. But they also go on to say that following such games, the developer has gained a reputation for deeply engaging in atmospheric games with a focus on storytelling. This made the developer a suitable choice for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, and the studio describes its rendition as powerful, dark, violent, and visceral characteristics fitting for a vampire themed RPG. Yeah, like when this is the trailer that I saw, the official announcement trailer. I get that. It seems like, and it also seems like they touched up the graphics. So graphically it looks better. Now the combat looks very, very, very good. Makes me like, this kind of gets my excitement back. I'm back on board with Bloodlines 2, man. Like I was always kind of on board with Bloodlines 2 because I played the original, but I didn't play the Battle Royale. I'm burnt out on Battle Royales, and I didn't think that Battle Royale looked interesting either. And I think that Battle Royale got shut down within a little bit over a year anyways. It only had like a year lifespan. So, I'm not of the cloth of Battle Royales anymore, but having the mainline game be announced and it looks the way that it looks now, I can tell the different, like the subtle touches that were made, because comparing this to the original gameplay that was shown, oh man, like the original gameplay looked terrible. That shit looked like it was like 2 generations behind at that point. And I'm just like, ugh. But it's nice to kind of see this game kind of make a resurgence, man. And I hope they get it out, as soon as they show. I think they do have like a gameplay showcase that they're planning on doing pretty soon as well. So I want to see more gameplay of this, and I mean, I really want to jump into this, man, and live in this world. The original was such a great RPG, and it's like, I'm not too much into vampires, but I like the whole like aesthetic behind this world. And I also like the just the combat and the gore behind it. I'm very much a gore person. I like being able to kind of like, cause a lot of destruction when I'm in games, per se. But yeah, this is good news, man. It's good news finally being able to kind of get Vampire Masquerades out and about now for everybody. But yeah, moving on though. We have some information about the Witcher 4 team grows to over 250 as development accelerates. This seems like they're getting all hands on deck. They do not want to have another Cyberpunk 2077 on their hands again, which is great. That's a great mindset to be in. So they go on to say that it has already been in pre-production since May 2022, and the development team for the game also saw an increase recently. A few months later, CD Projekt Red CEO Adam Kaczynski has revealed that the Polaris team has grown to almost 260 developers at the end of July. So this was at the end of July. Here's where it gets a little bit more interesting. The CEO continued by saying that the Phantom Liberty team is at its largest for now, consisting of around 300 developers. However, the CEO confirmed this will soon change and said, after releasing Phantom Liberty, we will transfer a big part of the team to Polaris. So they're going to get even more people. They already have 260 developers is a lot. That's a large studio. And them taking more people from Phantom Liberty and putting them on Polaris, they're trying to make, like, with The Witcher 4 is going to be an event. The Witcher 4 is going to be an event. They understand that. They understand the mistakes. They understand the issues that Cyberpunk 2077 had. I would not be surprised if The Witcher 4 was even more expansive than Cyberpunk, as well as more optimized. Especially given the fact that they're going all in on Unreal Engine 5. And, hopefully they don't make the same mistake as Ascendant Studios with Immortal of Aveum, which I don't think they will, because this will give, like, they have more time to be able to develop a game on that type of technology to allow new GPUs to be released. Like, we already seen the latest GPUs from AMD, like the latest mid-tier, or like the mainline GPUs that have been announced at Gamescom. Or I think it was a Tenacon, one of the two. But we've already seen those GPUs be announced and with release dates and everything like that. So I mean, like, this is great news, man. I definitely want to play. Like I said before, I'm working on building a new, rig, and I'm thinking more so going along the lines of an all AMD rig, like AMD and Corsair. Or I've been looking into Intel's GPUs as well, because I mean, I do like Intel CPUs. So I mean, yeah, like I'm looking into both, but this is actually great news. And if I'm not mistaken, man, like AMD, they actually are a big part of the gaming community. You know, they partner with a lot of different development studios to be able to, you know, you get a free game with a AMD GPU. So, I mean, like, I'm more leaning towards AMD just because of the impact that they have within the gaming sphere now, as well as the partnerships that they create within the community. So, I mean, like, I'm more likely leaning towards AMD. But this is actually good news, man, because, yeah, they're going all in on Witcher 4. All in on Witcher 4, like this is what I'm talking about. This is definitely what I'm talking about. They also give kind of like a graph of everything like that. You can kind of see like the just the shift in employee and developers going on to different projects. But yeah, this is great news, man. This is good news. I'm excited for it. Can't wait for The Witcher 4. But moving on, we got some more information, and this is kind of what I wanted to kind of bring up too with Immortals of Aveum can now run at native 4K 60 on our NVIDIA RTX 4090, even on low settings. I know this is kind of like an older article, but I kind of wanted to just talk about this briefly because I was excited for Immortals of Aveum, man. Once I started hearing more about this and it coming out and stuff, I was gonna get it on Steam, and then I'll be like, I was gonna play it while I was on vacation on my Asus ROG Ally. But yeah, man, it just comes down to it not being completely optimized. So I want to give it more time for them to kind of release more, patches and stuff like that. Haven't heard too much of that being released just yet. So I mean, they probably need to actually do a lot more digging and work on it. But just to kind of cover a few points here, they kind of go over and say that the game uses both Lumen and Nanite, and for gaming at native 4K, it requires GPUs that have not been released yet, which is crazy. Even the mighty NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090 is unable to offer 60 FPS at native 4K on low settings. I don't know if this has been like a widespread thing with everyone that's played this game, but from what I can see through Steam reviews and everything, a lot of people are saying wait on it. It's not optimized. It's not optimized yet. But they kind of go on also to say that at native 4K low settings, the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090 drops at 34 FPS during our benchmark sequence. That's on low settings. Let me repeat, low settings. They had to put that in there twice. I don't really know what Ascendant Studios was smoking while developing it, but I certainly would like some. Who wrote this? Because I actually, John Papadopoulos, I want to know what they were smoking too when they decided to do this. This is an inexcusable performance for a game that looks the way Immortals of Aveum does. Seriously, when your game cannot run in a native 4K low settings with 60 FPS on a beast of a GPU like the RTX 4090, you know that you have majorly effed up things. And I mean, it's hard to kind of disagree with that. It's like, the 4090, those cards excel at high frame rates. They excel at high resolution. I meant to say they excel at high resolution. So 40 F is if you're getting a 4090 or 4080 and things like that, those GPUs shine at 4K. That's what they're meant for. And for you to be able to have a card that powerful that is specifically designed for 4K resolutions, and it can't even get 60 FPS on low settings, that's terrible optimization. That's terrible game optimization. There's no excuse for that, and I just had a lot of I guess promise with this particular title, because I thought that the gameplay looked great. I thought that the trailers were amazing. I saw a lot of behind the scenes gameplay with this and stuff like that, but it's just man, even when trying to get games that look promising, man, it just still does not pan out well for them for some odd reason. And I think they kind of got too invested in the Lumen and Nanite. I think they played around with Unreal Engine 5 so much that they just they were like, oh man, this looks amazing on what we have here. And then they just didn't take into account any other type of, rig out there for other people. So, I mean, yeah, this kind of sucks, man. Definitely sucks for the people that, were excited for this game. But moving on though. we have some more information about it. Nightingale launches in early access next February. Man, I got a love-hate relationship with this because I'm just going to be like completely honest. I really want to play this game. I really wanted to play this game. You know, it's the studio's ran by an ex-BioWare dev, or I think an ex-BioWare, what was the president of BioWare, I think, Inflection Games. Yeah, man, I'm excited for this, man, but they just keep pushing it back. So to kind of go into it a little bit, in a press release regarding Nightingale's new early access date, Inflection Games admitted it's a little bit later than we were initially expecting. However, the studio said it is committed to quality and takes player satisfaction very seriously. That's great. You know what I'm saying? I like that. And you also go on to say that we want to ensure that the game delivers on the expectations for our community, who have played a vital role in development to date. This is one thing I can say is that they definitely, they definitely pay attention to what their community says. That's one thing I can say. Is that I've seen a lot of different feedback groups, subreddits, of even just sending out surveys and stuff like that. Unfortunately I haven't been able to get access into the closed beta yet. Or I think the closed alpha or something like that. No, it's a closed beta. I haven't been able to get into that just yet. But I mean, I'm subscribed to their newsletter and everything like that, and I get emails all the time. And they're constantly always putting out updates on their YouTube channel as well, man. So I mean, I think they actually mean it when they say that they're dedicated to player feedback. Former BioWare boss Aaron Flynn, that's the guy who's heading the Inflection Game studio for this game. So he goes on to say that Nightingale was initially set to release in early access sometime in 2022. So this is kind of an overview of how many times they've delayed the game, which I think is about 3 times total. It releases then got pushed back to the first half of 2023. This date then got moved again, and this time to autumn. So it's been pushed back 3 times already. Which is, for me, it's like a love-hate relationship type of thing. Yes, I want you to be able to develop a good game. I'm glad you're taking in player feedback. That's amazing. But I also want you to stop announcing when the game is coming into early access. Just quit announcing it. Just when you're ready to put it in early access, just put it out in early access. Don't and then when you're ready to do it, just announce it a week beforehand. You know what I'm saying? Just continue to kind of take in player feedback, go ahead and just do what you need to do on the back end. But on the front end, stop telling people when you're going to do the early access. At one point in time, I thought the early access was going to release around the same time Sons of the Forest was what released in early access. And I was like, man, that'd be a good competitor during the week. Nope. They pushed it back again. I'm just like, man, whatever. So they go on to say that the feedback we've been receiving from players has been invaluable, and the extra time will allow us to continue the progress we've been making while not jeopardizing the health of our team, which is great. I'm not supportive of crunch. I don't like crunch in any shape, form whatsoever. I believe that developers need time to be able to develop the game you want them to make. And you can't put you can't put them on a strict timeline. You know what I'm saying? You have to give them enough time to be able to breathe. And I think that comes down to management too. You need to be able to know how to manage your team a lot of the times. So they go on to say that there are a number of things we want to do with this extra time, from quality of life improvements like crafting bench animations, to tuning and progression and pacing, to continuing to work to make the realms feel as mystical and amazing as they can be. That's great, man. That's all great, all good stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely something that, needs to be, especially quality of life. I see so many games released in early access, man. There's just things that are just missing. And I feel like quality of life improvements is something that typically falls on the back burner of things, but that can actively, affect a player's, not gonna say immersion, but it does affect the enjoyment sometimes when you just sit back and I'll play a game that doesn't have certain things in it, and I'll just be like, man, this would be nice if they just added this in here. It'll make playing the game a lot easier if they just did it this way. So I mean, that's great. All this is great, but like I said, I just got a love-hate relationship with it, man. I'm ready to play this game. That's it. I'm just impatient when it comes to this game because this game looks so amazing. But yeah, moving on though. We have some more information. Final Fantasy 16 is getting 2 DLC expansions, and its PC port is officially in development. This is great. This is good news, man. Final Fantasy 16, released really well. Like me personally, I beat the entire game. I love that story. The story of that game is great. I'm still going back through to kind of like, clean up some side quests that I kind of like skimmed over because I wanted to kind of, jump more into the story and stuff like that, to the main quest. But, that game in itself, like the combat is amazing. Like that, and it's great. The other thing too is that they just released a brand new update, free update as well. That kind of added in transmogrification. So like you can be able to just kind of change the skins of, Clive Rossfield, and I think, Clive and Jill's different, skins, their outfits and stuff. And that's great, man, because like that was one thing that the game was lacking, was the ability to kind of be able to customize Clive's outfit a little bit. But he goes on to say that finally, while Final Fantasy 16 was released as a PlayStation 5 exclusive, we are aware that many of you have been asking for a PC version. So great for PC players. So allow me to take this opportunity to officially announce that development on a PC version is currently underway. So Final Fantasy 16 is coming to PC. Thank you, Yoshida. We appreciate that. Additionally, man, they also kind of go on to kind of talk about the free update that I mentioned earlier. A free update for the game is coming today that includes alternate costumes for several characters, a new onion sword weapon, and the ability to change the appearance of Clive's weapons while keeping the stats of the equipped one, which is essentially transmogrification. So yeah, man, this is all great. I'm excited for these DLC expansions. I'm definitely going to be investing into these DLC expansions to play more because I like this particular rendition of Final Fantasy 16, or this Final Fantasy series, I guess, or installment. And so yeah, man, this game is great in my eyes. I like this game a lot. Yeah, thank you for the additional content. I love the old school approach to this, like DLC expansions, no battle pass, no any of that. Just, give me a great game with great story. And then also, if you want to add more, add some DLC expansions, sell them for $20-$30. I'll pay it. Same thing with Cyberpunk 2077 and the Phantom Liberty DLC expansion. $30, great purchase price for the amount of content that's being added to that game. So yeah, definitely. Moving on though. This is the last little bit that I want to talk about for today. I don't necessarily like getting into politics on this podcast. I'm more so just like, I like to talk about the technicalities of games. I like to talk about the business of games. I just like to talk about games in general. But I felt like this was kind of like, pretty dope and important to talk about on here. So, I mean, this is, something that's pretty dope. But SAG-AFTRA prepares for potential video game industry strike. So just to kind of give a little overview and tidbit of that. I won't go into it too much. But SAG-AFTRA's board has voted unanimously to send out strike authorizations from its members for the video game industry. This means members would vote on whether they would want to strike or not, and should negotiations with the video game industry fall through. Notable companies that would be struck include Insomniac Games, Warner Brothers, Disney, Activision, EA, Epic Game Store, and Take-Two Interactive. SAG-AFTRA is seeking for better wages, protection against AI, and better working conditions such as vocal stress protections for those in the gaming industry. Negotiations with the aforementioned companies will start on September 26th, so the chance of a gaming industry strike will start to become more of a possibility by the end of the month. This is great, man. Like I'm in all support of like unions. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's been talk for unionization in video games for a very long time. And I think before this entire strike went on, there was only, I think, maybe 2 studios that were able to unionize. And I think that was one of them, I know for a fact, is Raven Studios. That's part of Activision. They help with the multiplayer components of their Call of Duty games. I forgot what the other one was, but I think was the other one part of Riot? I can't remember now, but I know for a fact Raven Studios was one of the ones that was able to be able to unionize. I think this is great news, man. I think this is good, man. Maybe hopefully this is it seems like this is only going to stretch to the voice actors. But I mean, there needs to be unions for developers too, man. Developers get crunched. Developers get chewed up and spit out of that industry, man. And it's just like a cogwheel, a monolith of just like repetition and just crunching, getting new developers all the time. And they have no union. They have no nothing. They can just like, most of them are just contract workers. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it kind of sucks, man. But I mean, at least there's some type of leakage over into the video game industry that can help some, people that's part of that industry, man, because given the fact that we live in such a corporatized America, man, it's you need some type of change to be able to happen for people in this world. So I mean, this is great news, man. But yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to talk about today, man. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Opposite the Monitor. I like talking about video games, man. I like giving my opinions, my thoughts on stuff like this. Maybe it's an opinion you've heard before, maybe not. Maybe it's a thought that, you might have had before, maybe not. But either way, glad you guys were able to kind of tune in. I'm glad you guys enjoy the content. Make sure if you do enjoy the content, make sure you like the video. If you want to keep up with all of the content, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a video. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week.